Hi, welcome to Hollywood Crime Scene. This is Rachel Fisher.
Hi, this is Desi, Jedeikin. We'd like to start off by thanking our new Patreon supporters.
Yay.
We're very grateful for them. I want to say hey to Harold. Hey, Harold.
Hey.
Also like to give a huge shout out to Heather, who upped her monthly donation.
She did.
That's so hot.
Yeah, it was super hot.
Then we have Mark and Heather Rose. And then we have Aaron. Sorry, I'm not saying last names right. And Heather also sent us a nice message.
She did.
Yeah, she's great. So you guys can send us messages, and we pretty much, one of us will always respond. Sometimes both of us respond because we're really coordinated.
Right.
Things like that.
Right.
But yeah, we love hearing from you.
We do. There was actually an email that moved me to tears.
Aw.
Yes, I was PMSing, but I was
Yes.
I was moved to tears. I did start crying when I got an email from our friend Will this weekend. So thank you very much for that really sweet note you sent us. It's really cool to hear from you guys. And we will keep churning out the disgusting, vulgar, hopefully hilarious content
On the bonus episodes.
on the bonus episodes.
So on
yeah.
Patreon, if you give $5 a month, you get access to a weekly bonus episode. So you get like 2 for the price of 1 per week.
So
or something
cool.
like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, so let's get into this week's crime.
This week's crime, we are talking about the Sunset Strip Killers. This is, for such a crazy story, this is actually, I feel like one of the lesser known crimes.
Right.
It's not.
Well, one thing we might want to say to people, like, we're mostly focused on Hollywood,
Right.
sort of celebrity stuff, but we also want to focus in on some crimes that actually took place in the city.
Yes.
Just because we feel like it's all sort of connected in like a seedy kind
It
of
is.
dream-seeking
Right.
way. But
And-
yeah, so this is one of those.
Right. This is a legitimate Hollywood crime. It took place in Hollywood proper and surrounding.
Like actually Hollywood,
areas.
not like Beverly Hills Housewives where they're all over the valley.
Right. No, like there are streets that have been mentioned in the material I was researching that I'm like, oh, that's like down the block from me.
Right.
Because we record the show in Hollywood
Yeah.
at my house. So, so the Sunset Strip Killers, let's just get right into it. This was a couple that was committing these crimes. This was a pair. This was a man and a woman. And we're going to start with Doug Clark. Douglas Daniel Clark was born March 10th, 1948 in Pennsylvania. His father, Franklin, was a naval intelligence officer. So Doug and his 4 siblings, they moved around a lot. And they didn't just move around a lot around the country. They were all over the world. They were global. They were living in the Marshall Islands at one point. They lived in San Francisco. They even lived in India for a while. And because of Franklin Clark's status in the Navy, Doug and his family, they got to live this really incredibly privileged life. It was like they even had butlers, like literal.
Really?
Yeah, at some of the places they were living
That's
in.
like my dream.
They were jet setters. They had butlers.
Really? Wow.
And I just think it's interesting because you don't usually hear a lot about these serial killer backstories about this lavish lifestyle.
Right.
You
It's always
hear
like head trauma,
pissing
abusive.
the bed,
Yeah.
decapitating your dog, and living in a trailer park.
Right. Or
You hear-
something equally.
And I know a
horrible.
lot of backstories of serial killers. That's kind of our thing. But these people had a very privileged life. And Doug was super into that. He used that to his advantage to try and make friends and to try and seduce women when he was a young man. And he would brag all the time to his classmates. He ended up going to a very prestigious high school where a lot of sons of kings and other people in high-ranking areas of the military went to in Geneva. And although Doug didn't do well in school or with making friends, according to him, he did very well with the ladies. And he would brag all the time to his classmates about his sexcapades, and they thought it was weird.
Wait, who would brag to who?
Doug would brag to his classmates all the time.
And how old is he during this?
He's like 16, 15, 16. So he'd be like boning these ladies. And he thought he was
How
like,
was he boning people at 16?
I don't know, but he would brag all the time to them. And they totally thought he was a weird kid. Like, even though he was fucking all these chicks allegedly,
Right.
they were like, okay, calm down. Like,
Yeah.
shut up. We don't care.
It's not like he had a Twitter account where he talked about it on stuff.
Right. Doug was also a troublemaker in school. He did not like authority. And he got in trouble for things like drunkenness. And one time he even got in trouble for writing an erotic letter to one of his teachers,
Wow.
which is like the original sext.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so
I love reading erotic letters.
they don't make them like that anymore.
I mean, you could get a really long text sometimes.
Right. You could get a really long text. But these are the types of things that he got in trouble for. And he was eventually expelled, and then he was sent to a military school in Indiana. Here, he got involved with sports and even took up playing the sax. And he was in a band playing the sax, which is interesting. He continued to be a problem student, though, even though he'd gotten involved in these other extracurricular activities. And he, as still, was displaying this very antisocial behavior. And his parents didn't really give a shit. I guess I imagined like his parents being
hardcore military, strict discipline.
Yes, that, and also since I guess they were well-to-do, I imagine his parents also the cliche like, oh, our boy's fine. Like they were off in different parts of the world.
Right.
His parents, and
They
he
had
was
their
sort
own
of
lives.
yeah, he was sort of left to his own devices. I feel like at school. So the teachers and his school counselors would call the parents up like, yo, your son's hella weird. And they'd be like, he's fine.
Right.
They didn't see the signs. They didn't see like
He was antisocial.
that he was antisocial.
Wait, was he an only child? An only child?
He had 4 other siblings.
Oh, okay.
He was like in the middle. He was the third child.
Middle child.
Yeah, what are you going to do? Doug, one of the things he liked to do was record the sounds of him fucking when he was a teenager. And this must have been some pretty primitive recording device. I don't know what they used. They didn't have like
a tape
a
deck.
tape. I don't know what he
Put
used.
like a cassette tape in and press record.
This is like in the 60s.
They didn't have those?
I don't know what they had. Could someone write us in? He would put this under the bed and record the sounds of the girl moaning, and then he would take the tape to school or whatever it was and play it for his classmates.
I'm just amazed that this guy really is fucking all these kids at that age. Or kids.
Kids. They're
Women.
kids. They're kids.
Right.
But they're girls. So, and they thought, and his students, I mean, his classmates, they thought he was gross and they thought it was weird, which they absolutely had every right to think.
That's like one of those things where at first you're like, oh my God. And then you're like, wait a second. This is really creepy. Right.
And the women, the girls he was fucking, they didn't know they were being
Of course
recorded.
not, right.
Can you imagine, especially being in
That's
high
like
school?
very Bob Crane of him.
It's very Bob Crane. There are some interesting, similar themes in his story and his fetishes that are very similar to that. When he was 17, he met 14-year-old Bobby, and they fell in love.
So Bobby's a woman.
Bobby's
or
a
girl.
woman, yeah. And he would take pictures of him and Bobby fucking. And I guess Bobby was into it.
Right.
Because you have to
set up a camera.
Right.
I have a picture he has like that squeezy ball thing.
and the powder comes out. That's like really old school.
We're very tech savvy on this show.
And he would take pictures of them fucking, and he would also pass those around to his classmates.
God.
What a fucking loser. In 1967, he enlisted in the Air Force, and he wound up stationed in Anchorage, Alaska. Although he still didn't like being told what to do, he did like the nightlife and the girls in Alaska. So he would often go to the bars instead of doing what he needed to be doing, and he would like to get drunk and hang out with the chicks and pick up chicks. Yeah, I guess.
But isn't that the place where it's all Alaska men? Like, remember the calendar they used to do?
Or
like, there's like so few women there that everyone's like, oh, you can move up to Alaska and get a man.
Right, and like we'll pay you
Yeah.
to live here. I don't know, but he liked the chicks in Alaska. He kept their pussies warm, I guess.
They're beavers.
He kept their
There's a little muff.
their Alaskan beavers warm and cozy. So he, when he was honorably discharged from the Air Force, he drove from Alaska down to California with $5,000, and he wound up moving in with his sister, Carol Ann, in Van Nuys.
Carol Ann.
Yeah. Throwback. When he was 27, he met Beverly, who was age 24, at a nightclub in the Valley, and the two of them got married. Beverly was...
Wait, is there like a sadder phrase than nightclub in the Valley?
No, there is not. So Beverly was less attractive than Doug, which so many accounts, like I feel like every account I've read about Doug, they paint him as this like handsome guy, but I'm sorry, I've looked at several pictures of him.
I know, I saw a few too.
And he's fucking haunting looking, and not in a hauntingly beautiful way. He's not cute to me at all.
He's very basic to me. Like I would never think, oh, there's a woman less attractive than him. Like he's not like ugly,
but he's not Ted Bundy.
He's not Ted Bundy hot.
Well, I'm saying out of all the despicable serial killers.
Right.
And I don't even think Ted Bundy was hot, but I guess he was hot for a serial killer. Like
Right.
Ted Bundy was a ladies' man
had
also.
symmetrical features and like
Right.
Yeah.
He was whatever. So Beverly was less attractive. She was slightly overweight, and she felt that she was dumpy looking. She was very insecure, and she really liked that Doug was ambitious and handsome, and they ended up buying a car upholstery business together. And Doug was a pretty shitty businessman. He was not good at his job. Beverly recounts that Doug liked to wear her underwear, and that he would often try to get her to have three-ways and swing with other couples.
in the Valley.
In the Valley. Other hot couples
what
in the
year is
Valley.
this?
This is 1967. This is the
Okay.
late 60s.
Right.
This is
So
happening.
swinging is just getting
It's
into swing.
It's getting into swing. Doug was also an alcoholic. He was still drinking a lot. He spent a lot of time in the bars, and Beverly started to feel pretty neglected by Doug, and she thought that he was pulling away from her because she had gained a lot of weight during their marriage. She tried to get him to go to AA, and Doug actually did go and get sober for 2 years, but then he went back to drinking. In 1976, after being married for 4 years, they got a divorce. So at this time, Doug was bouncing around from woman to woman, specifically overweight, lonely woman that he could get shit from, like money and free rent.
Right.
And he liked to take advantage of these women because he thought that they were so desperate for love that they would sort of give him a free ride.
Right.
So he was like, he also had a nickname for himself, which I think is so tacky. You can't make up your own nickname, I feel like. And he would call himself the king of one night stands. Ugh. I know. Isn't that gross? So,
Well, I mean, he could hardly prove that.
well, and also I'm like, I guess he was fucking a lot in between and probably cheating on his wife before. But he was a smooth talking ladies man, and he was basically like the quintessential, in my opinion, the more I was reading about him, he was really like a pickup artist type, which I feel like if you don't know what a pickup artist is,
Right.
It's like a men's rights activist type who thinks that women owe them sex essentially, and that there's a set of rules and it's like a code and like a guide to basically fuck any woman you want.
Right, because they think they're experts in psychology.
Yeah.
And that they can, like, if it's an attractive woman, they'll neg them and that gets a woman.
Yeah, there's all these, like,
they don't think
different
I'm beautiful.
tactics.
Yeah. So with a more traditionally unattractive woman, I'm sure the technique is much different. 'Cause They
Right.
probably build them up a bit.
Right.
Because they're desperate for some kind of affection or.
And that was
yeah.
really his move. He would build up these women who he felt were unattractive, or these women who were insecure and lonely and wanted to have some kind of companionship. And then he would take advantage of them and emotionally be abusive to them. And these women, of course, would get caught in the cycle. So he was like the ultimate fake male feminist, I feel
Right.
like.
That should have been his nickname.
He should have
the
been.
original fake male feminist.
I mean, we don't know. He might have been doing this longer than Ted Bundy. because Ted Bundy, I used to call the original fake male feminist, but this guy was doing it too back in LA. So I even read an account of one of his moves to pick up on chicks would be that he would recite Shakespeare.
Oh my God.
Like quotes from Shakespeare or speak in French to seem super like intelligent and kind of sexy and exotic. And I just feel like that's so fucking gross. Like if a sleazy guy was trying to pick up on me and they started reciting Shakespeare, even though I actually totally love Shakespeare, if like a guy was using that to hit on me, my pussy would crawl up into my body.
It's kind of like that story I saw recently about the guy playing piano to get his girlfriend back. It's like, just don't. Like,
right. Just stop it. She doesn't want you. She doesn't want to fuck you
I don't
anymore.
like any of that kind of like smooth, here's some classical music
No.
or Shakespeare. It's just like, come on.
Just be yourself.
Yeah.
Just be yourself.
It's just so obvious that you're trying to impress.
Yeah.
And there's just nothing worse than that.
Well, it can come off very manipulative too.
Right.
And try hard.
And that's what he was doing. He was manipulating.
Yes.
There's a reason that it feels that way.
In 1979, Doug Clark met 37-year-old Carol Bundy at the Little Nashville Country Club.
Where's that?
That's in the Valley. I guess it used to be in the Valley. I mean, maybe it's still there. I don't know.
Nashville. I mean, that doesn't sound very upscale to me.
Well, that's where Carol Bundy was that night because she was there to see a guy who did Tom Jones covers sing.
Wow. Honestly, I want to go now. I wish it still existed.
I didn't look it up, but I'll look it up after the show to see if it still exists. Okay, we're going to do a flashback now. Carol Bundy. Carol Bundy was born Carol Peters on August 26th, 1942, to Charles and Gladys Peters. Gladys, her mom, was super rude to Carol, like emotionally and physically abusive. Carol has a very sad story. Carol does, when I think about the typical serial killer origin story,
Right.
Carol really has that down pat.
She hits the nail on
She
the
hits
head.
the nail on a lot of different sort of points here. So Gladys, the mom, was physically and emotionally abusive to her. She would call her fat and beat her and her sister. In 1957, though, Gladys Peters died of a heart attack, and Carol's dad, Charles, told her that her and her sister were going to have to replace their mom sexually.
Oh, I thought he meant go find a new wife.
Desi's like, "Aw, no,
sweet dad."
It was sexually.
So they had to fill in.
They had to fill in
Your
for the
mom is
mom's role.
gone. Okay.
Right.
Wait, so okay.
He was molesting both of the kids, is what I'm trying to
But
say.
he actually said that to them.
Yes.
Like, it's your
Yes.
duty now.
It's your
You have
duty.
to fulfill your mom's wifely duties.
Exactly.
That's so gross.
It's so mean. Their mom
It's almost
just
like
died.
there's something worse about saying this is your job now than to just molest them. Sorry. I know that's a very subtle distinction.
Well, you would know.
I would know. So I'm telling you from my own perspective. It does seem like more like traumatizing. Sorry.
I also think, could he have waited a little bit to let them grieve?
Like a grieving period. I don't know. I mean, clearly these are not good people.
No.
It's so horrible.
It's just
Anyways,
awful.
yeah.
So, Carol's dad, Charles, he was having sexual relationships with both of his two daughters.
How old were they?
Carol Bundy was 13 and the sister was 11.
Oh my God.
So, yeah.
They're young.
They're young kids. And her dad did eventually get remarried, and when he got remarried, the molesting stopped.
But it really was just. I mean, it's
Look,
so
sweetie,
disturbing to me.
I'm not a pedophile.
Okay, I'm just practical here.
Right.
Like,
I just need someone to fuck.
Also, he. Okay, I'm not
Yeah.
going to go into that.
Let's not get at replies this week. So he got remarried, and one day he sent Carol to the store, and when she came back, he had tried to kill himself but failed. He did end up blowing his thumb off, and he did end up shooting the cat and killing the cat.
What? Like,
He
wait.
shot the cat on purpose, and the reason he shot the cat is because he was planning on going on a killing spree on killing his wife and himself.
Oh, so he chickened out after he killed the cat and then just killed himself?
No, he was going to kill himself also, but he misfired.
Oh, okay.
And shot off his thumb instead.
But his plan was,
I'm going to shoot the cat. I'm going to shoot my wife.
But he skipped the wife. So okay.
I don't know. That's a part of the story I didn't.
That's like a gap.
Yeah. Sorry, guys.
So he accidentally shot off his thumb.
And when Carol came back to the store and she saw this blood everywhere and her cat dead, she was like, "What the fuck?" And the girls were sent to foster care, and his new wife was like, "Your dad needs to figure some shit out," clearly. Which I don't know why she wouldn't just divorce him at that point. Like, bitch, you shot our cat and you were going to shoot me?
If someone killed my cat, I would kill them.
Oh my God.
I mean,
it would be over for you.
Well, I mean, obviously this is not someone who was like, "Oh, this is a good man."
Right.
Like, she had to know.
I'm marrying the molester.
Yeah.
Eventually, Charles Peters did kill himself. He hanged himself. So good riddance to a horrible man. When Carol was 17, she married a 56-year-old man. So clearly she has some emotional issues,
right,
largely caused by her upbringing already. She ended up getting married 3 times.
Wow.
In a pretty short span of time. And these were not good relationships.
No.
By any stretch of the imagination. She's
also, I mean, I hate to bring this up, but she's not an extremely attractive
She's not.
woman.
And this matters because it ties into her relationship later on with Doug Clark and his proclivity for roping in these women who are less conventionally attractive or overweight and sort of taking advantage of them. But let's just call a spade a spade. Carol Bundy is no fucking victim here.
Right.
I mean, she was a victim when she was a child, but she's not a good person.
Right.
Let's just get that out of the way. She was a monster as well. So Carol ended up marrying a man named Grant Bundy in the late 60s. That's where she got her last name from. That's
the serial killer pedigree name.
She really did. I mean, like you got Ted Bundy, you got this bitch, you got the irritating Bundys up in Oregon, the ones.
Oh, right.
Those guys.
Yeah.
The whole, remember like the people were
in Oregon, and then there was one, I think, in Nevada, like the dad. I can't remember.
It was Cliven
yeah,
Bundy.
I was almost like Cooter Bundy.
It's the same thing.
Yeah.
So Carol and Grant had 2 sons. Carol also, not only was she overweight and unattractive, she also had bad eyesight and wore really thick glasses. Like the kind of glasses that are like Coke bottle.
Right, like the classic.
Like really
nerd,
unfortunate.
4 eyes.
Total 4 eyes.
Where your eyes literally look double in size almost because they're so thick.
They did, and there's pictures of her I've seen where it's like, whoa, those are some thick-ass glasses. She was being abused. She'd been abused by pretty much all of her husbands, and she did spend some time living in a battered woman's shelter. But eventually, Carol separated from Grant Bundy, and her 2 sons moved into a new place. And this is where she met and fell in love with Jack Murray, her apartment manager. Jack Murray was a country singer, and he was Australian, kind of like Keith Urban, but this guy's a monster, so not like Keith Urban.
Well, we assume.
I just saw him on the Emmys tonight. He looked like he really loved his wife. So I'm just saying.
Interesting.
But he's also an Australian country singer.
Right.
So.
It's a rare combo.
Yeah, it's a rare combo. So the 2 started hooking up. The only problem was that Jack was married. So already he's a piece of shit. And he really strung Carol along. He knew that Carol was wrapped around his finger because he was this kind of hunky Rico Suave guy. He was also very much a ladies' man. He was a country crooner. He was kind of, I mean, like he was like attractive, I guess. He's not my type, but like I saw pictures of him. Like Carol just thought he was like the fucking hottest guy on earth, and she can't believe it. This guy's paying all this attention to her, right. And oh my God, she's probably thinking like he's gonna leave his wife for me. Mm-hmm. And he really strung her along. Like, yeah, I'll leave.
Why?
Like,
I mean, just for the sex, was she really good at it? Like, I'm just
she gave a mean blowjob.
But like, what was his?
Here's the motive. Carol, when she got divorced from Grant, she got half of the house. So she got half of what this house was worth, and it was a lot of money. So Carol had money in the bank.
Yeah.
And Jack Murray wanted some of that money, and he was able to siphon money from her and get money. Oh, baby, I need $20,000 for this.
Really? She had that kind of money?
Yes, she did.
Jesus.
And he got quite a few tens of thousands of dollars from her. And Carol was just like convinced that eventually that he's going to leave his wife and be with me. And this is like an investment I'm making to spend all this money on him, and he'll be with me. And he would make her feel beautiful and lift her up as well, even though he was being a total piece of shit to her, like another total fake male feminist. This is a theme here in the story. So he also told Carol that his wife had been diagnosed with cancer, and Carol was probably stoked because she's like, oh, well, we can be together then because she's going to die. And
I mean, it's sad, but
right. I mean, that's too
bittersweet,
bad.
yeah.
Right. But at least we can be together. So Jack really kept pushing this that, yeah, when she dies, we'll be together. Just hang on tight. She's
Right.
almost dead.
Jesus.
Jack's wife didn't even have cancer, though.
What?
What a shock. And around this time, Carol had entered into a sexual relationship with an 11-year-old girl that was also living in the apartment complex. Record scratch.
What the hell? I feel like the term entered into a sexual
Right.
relationship.
Coerced a sexual relationship.
The hell?
She was molesting. Yeah, she was molesting an 11-year-old girl, and she would probably thought it was very consensual. Carol probably did,
Right.
because the girl wasn't kicking and screaming.
So the girl, I recognize that this is rape no matter what. But
Right.
was the girl like doing it?
Yes,
Or
the girl was according to Carol, was participating in this
and wanted to.
She obviously was not able to consent because she was a child.
Right.
We're not.
But I was just curious,
Right.
like what, and if it was an ongoing thing. It wasn't like a one time.
No, it happened. It was happening. It was ongoing. Jack allegedly was also involved in this. Yeah. So they were having 3-ways together with this 11-year-old.
Now, was Jack, do you think, really behind the whole thing? Like, do you think he encouraged her, or they didn't go into that aspect?
I think Carol actually.
Maybe she did it to entice him. Like, I can get this girl for us.
It's interesting because a part of me wonders, there's like lots of different theories, I think, and there's lots of different reports, but like I think it was a mix of both. I think Carol had these dark, deep, really fucked up fantasies and sexual fetishes that are very much illegal and very much twisted and depraved that she wanted to explore, but also that she had a dark yearning to impress a man
Right.
at all costs.
Right. Well, a lot of times this stuff I don't think is thought out in a big way, but it's subconsciously what you're trying to do is
Right.
to like get someone to like you.
Right. And she
She
would
doesn't
really
have a great personality, and she's not like a great looker.
Right.
So she's like, I can get this kind of stuff. Like,
Exactly.
Yeah, and I'll do anything.
So I do think a lot of it, whether or not she was conscious about it, was her subconsciously looking for love that she had never gotten as a child, as a teenager, and as an adult. And she's also just a sick, fucked up person too. I mean,
it's a combination.
it can be a combination of a lot of things. And Jack Murray also was really into S&M, so he could act out his sexual fetishes with Carol, and Carol would do whatever. I mean, she did whatever he wanted, and
Right.
that's another reason why he kept her around and strung her along, was like not only her money, but that she would fulfill his darkest sexual desires with her.
That's my MO, but I'm not a sicko. No, I'm just kidding.
Carol was so desperate to get Jack back, she actually offered his wife $1,500 to leave her
Wow.
husband, which I feel like is a really low balling.
Really low ball. Like,
Even in the 70s, that's really low balling.
I'm just trying to think like how much it would take me. I mean, Who knows? It seems like no one even fucking cared about anyone back in this period.
Right.
maybe it would have worked.
$1,500.
Well, if she was like, I'm leaving him anyway, like, sure, let me get some money out of this.
But the wife, Jack's wife, was like, "Fuck you!" Like,
of course,
and she was like, "Hell no!" And she was pissed. And
can you imagine seeing Carol? I'm sorry,
excuse me,
but knowing that your husband was cheating on you with Carol Bundy,
and she offers you a measly price of $1,500.
It's like baffling to me. I can't even imagine how angry I would be.
Oh my God. I mean, we're going to post pictures. Like, we've posted a lot of really glamorous, like, kind of cool, hip looking pictures on our Instagram before. And I just want to warn all of our listeners that none of the pictures we're going to post the following week are going to be cute.
They're pretty gruesome.
They're gross. I mean, I don't know if we're going to post super gruesome pictures, but we will post pictures of these depraved, disgusting people involved in the story. None of the players in the story are attractive or glamorous. They're all awful, awful people, and they're all awfully ugly people, in my opinion.
Right.
So
I'm pro look shaming serial killers.
I am too. I'll fat shame a serial killer, and I'm very anti-fat shaming, but I mean, I don't know. I've been like trying not to fat shame. It's interesting because I was reading I bought a book about this because there's so much information about these two fucking sickos. So I bought a book this week and I was reading it about them. And I don't know when the book was written. It's like an ebook I bought. I need to check that, but I just skipped right to it's like a serial killer book, and there's this whole chapter on these two fuckos. And the language in it is like really not PC at all, even though it's like a book written by some scholar, I guess, or some crime expert.
Right.
It must have been written a long time ago.
Right. Because there'd be a little bit more PC if it was recent.
Yeah. I mean, the book repeatedly refers to people as like fat, dumpy, ugly. Like, she was a fat woman. And
well, fat I think is okay.
Yeah, it's okay, but it's
but with dumpy, it seems a little more.
It's just in a very coarse way they used to describe all the players in this story.
Yeah.
And there's just this huge fat theme throughout the story.
Well, that doesn't seem very scholarly.
No.
Right.
I don't know who wrote this book. I got it and it had a lot of information and it was recommended. So
yeah,
that's why I got this book. But I also, I'm sorry, I was reading it and there were these quotes in it from Doug Clark, and Doug Clark had a fucking potty mouth on him too. I mean, like, we're going to go more into this next week. This is going to be a 2-parter. I don't know if we mentioned that up top.
No.
But I really just wanted to give you guys like a little bit of backstory and how these two ended up meeting first. That's what we're going to talk about first, is their backstory and how they ended up meeting. Let me just back up here where I left off, is that so Carol and Jack, Jack was like, look, my wife, what are you going to do? She's being a total bitch. We got to break it off. So they finally broke it off. But that didn't stop Carol from going to the Little Nashville Country Club to meet up with Jack. / she wasn't actually meeting up with him. She was just stalking him there.
Was that where he performed?
This is where Jack Murray performed his Tom Jones songs. For some reason, Tom Jones isn't even a country singer, but I guess he was singing Tom Jones that night.
Right.
Whatever.
You got to get some gigs to pay the bills.
So this is the Little Nashville Country Club in the Valley. I think it was in North Hollywood. This is where she was going to creep on Jack. Like, what's he doing?
Yeah.
Oh, I love him so much. Just like staring at him.
She's his #1 fan.
Oh, and I forgot to mention at one point that Jack had convinced Carol to get like laser eye surgery or surgery on her eyes to fix them because of her Coke bottle glasses.
I mean, that would have been a very new surgery.
I guess it wasn't LASIK eye surgery, but
so it was some version.
It was some version
of LASIK.
Yeah, something that was happening in the 70s. And
I love the nerve of him. Like, he's not going to leave his wife for what he's telling her to do.
And he didn't even pay for the surgery either.
But not only that really honestly wouldn't do much to improve her looks. Like, it wasn't like the glasses were the problem. Like,
the glasses were not the problem with her look. She was not an attractive woman.
She just didn't have a style about her either. I mean, do you know what I mean? Like,
she was just, I think the evilness also just seeped from her every being.
Right.
Like, she looked miserable. She didn't look like a fun person to be around.
No, every picture I've seen of her looks like she's in misery. Like,
right. There's no joy
Right.
coming from this woman's face. There's nothing. Like, she doesn't have a good soul or a good heart. You don't
No,
look
you
at her
can
and go,
just
I want to
tell.
hang out with Carol Bundy.
Right.
So, but he did convince her, like, oh, you'd be so much, you should get your eyes fixed. And, which is like really irritating because like he didn't even pay for it. Like I said before, this was on her own dime. So, but he's like the master manipulator. So he's like, yeah, baby, like do it.
And she'll do anything to keep him.
And because it worked, because the surgery worked and she didn't have to wear these thick Coke bottle glasses anymore, she took that as like, he really loves me.
Right. That's good that it worked.
Well, it's good that it worked for her, but it's also like for him, it was probably more cosmetic.
Right.
He just wanted her to not have these hideous glasses anymore, probably. So Carol's at the country club, and even though she had gone there to creep on Jack, she spies Doug Clark from across the room, and she was all, oh, shit.
Dreamweaver started playing.
Literally, Dreamweaver started playing, and she was like in a trance, like, that guy's hot. I want him now. And suddenly her love for Jack had faded away because she was on to the next.
Wow.
And that's how they met. And that's the story. That's their backstory. And next week we're going to talk about the two of them teaming up, committing all sorts of fucking mayhem all over the streets of Hollywood and Los Angeles. But yeah, a couple of two
little lovebirds.
Two lovebirds. I mean, really, they really are the perfect match because here we have Doug, who is this ladies' man, like Jack is.
Well, it seems like they both are each other's type, like to a T, right?
They really are.
She's like this unattractive, easily manipulated person,
and that's his thing.
And
right.
and he is her thing, like this good-looking kind of ladies' man,
right?
Type. I mean, I don't know what her first husband was. He probably was a loser, but
no,
the Jack and him sort of fit that bill,
right? But even Carol,
also, she liked that dominant guy.
Yeah, and even Carol described her own self as not being attractive in the book that I was reading. There was a quote from her, and she had said she looked very much like her dad, who looked like a roly-poly,
right?
And she's like, that's what I take after him. Like she knew she wasn't this hot lady or anything, but she would, but she would get these guys, but they were really just using her, and she would go to any lengths to please them. So it really was this perfect meeting, the two of them, in this country club.
This Nashville country club.
This little Nashville country club.
I looked it up while you were talking before, and I think it might still exist, which is sort of horrifying.
Maybe when we do our first meetup, we'll meet there at the show.
That sounds scary.
Doesn't that sound creepy?
Yeah.
And then going all the way to the valley.
There's just no way that place is nice.
No, I know.
But that's fine. I like dive bars.
I do too. I really wonder what it's like there.
Yeah. Okay, cool. I'm excited to hear about.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sorry that it's not, it's kind of a little shorter episode today, but this is going to be a two-parter. So we're going to have part 2 for you up next week. Like I said, we're going to talk about the murder and the mayhem and all the fucking crazy shit. That's going to be a longer episode probably. And I just want to thank our Patreon contributors again. And do you have anything else you'd like to say?
No, that's it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bye.
More taters, Mom.